Whatever happened to these stars? Once they were rich, famous, living the dream, now they're locked up and mostly forgotten. From red carpets and sold-out shows to prison cells and court dates, these 35 celebrities ended up behind bars. The reasons? Shocking, dark, and seriously disturbing. You're not going to believe who's still sitting in prison right now. But before starting this video, please subscribe to the channel and like it. This will help develop the channel. Jerry Harris got famous for his huge smile and positive energy on that Netflix show Cheer. He was basically the cheerleading squad's hype man, inspiring tons of viewers. But everything fell apart when police arrested him for inappropriate online contact with kids. In February 2022, he admitted to wrongdoing involving a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old. The judge handed him 12 years in federal prison that July, plus 8 more years of supervised release afterward. His whole rising career just crashed and burned instantly. Austin Jones was this popular YouTube musician with tons of young fans, but he completely wrecked his career and his life by doing absolutely terrible things. He got convicted for manipulating underage fans into sending him inappropriate content. Prosecutors said he took advantage of girls who looked up to him, some as young as 14. In May 2019, he got sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. The whole situation is just really disturbing. A clear case of someone abusing their online influence. Shah was on The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, where she flaunted this super expensive lifestyle full of designer stuff and fancy parties. But behind all that flash, she was running this massive telemarketing scam that targeted elderly and vulnerable folks. After getting caught, she tried making money off the whole mess by selling Justice for Jen merchandise, which really ticked off prosecutors. In January 2023, she got sentenced to 6.5 years in federal prison and had to fork over $6.5 million. She also had to give up a bunch of designer bags, jewelry, and luxury items they seized from her place. Nathaniel Glover, better known as Kid Creole, was one of the founding members of the legendary hip-hop group Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. This guy helped build the whole hip-hop scene back in the day. But his story took a really dark turn in 2017 when he got into a confrontation with a homeless man named John Jolly on the streets of Manhattan. The 62-year-old got convicted of ending Jolly's life, and in May 2022, he got sentenced to 16 years behind bars. It's a tragic fall for someone who was once a pioneer of street music. Allison Mack was best known for her role on the TV show Smallville, but she got mixed up in something way darker. This group called MEXCM that acted like it was about self-help, but was actually a dangerous organization. She recruited women into this group and put them through really terrible treatment. She told them it was about women's empowerment, but it was really all about control. In June 2021, she got sentenced to 3 years in prison and had to pay a $20,000 fine. Her whole acting career got completely overshadowed by this scandal. Bill Cosby was once called America's dad because of his wholesome TV image. Dozens of women came forward accusing him of serious misconduct over the years. In 2018, he got convicted and sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison. He served more than 2 years before Pennsylvania's highest court threw out his conviction in June 2021 because of a legal technicality about his due process rights. Even though he got out, his reputation was completely destroyed. The whole situation became a major moment in the Me Too movement. Tupac Shakur was a legendary rapper whose music left a huge mark on hip-hop history, but his life was full of legal troubles. In 1994, he was the victim when someone attacked and shot him 5 times in a robbery that nearly ended his life. Then in February 1995, he got convicted in a case where a woman accused him of wrongdoing in a Manhattan hotel room. The judge sentenced him to 1.5 to 4.5 years in prison. He ended up serving only 9 months before getting out on bail while appealing. Tragically, on September 7, 1996, Tupac got shot multiple times in a drive-by in Las Vegas. He passed away 6 days later on September 13th at just 25 years old. The case of who was responsible has never been officially solved. Amy Locane, an actress remembered from Melrose Place, got involved in a terrible car crash while driving under the influence. The crash ended a woman's life and seriously injured another person, and it completely flipped Amy's world from red carpets to courtrooms. A judge ordered her to serve an 8-year prison sentence, and now her name is connected more to tragedy than to television. Her story is a harsh reminder that drunk driving can destroy multiple lives at once, including the life of the person behind the wheel. Michael Jace, best known for playing a calm, reliable police officer on The Shield, completely destroyed his own career and freedom with one devastating act at home. In May 2014, inside their Los Angeles house and in front of their young children, he ended his wife's life. The case shocked people across the country and revealed a dark reality behind his Hollywood image. After a highly emotional trial, he got sentenced to 40 years to life in prison, going from TV cop to inmate, and becoming a grim example of how domestic violence can destroy everything. Joe's son, who once appeared in an Austin Powers movie and had a promising career as a mixed martial arts fighter, was hiding a dark past nobody expected. Years later, a DNA match suddenly connected him to a brutal group attack from the 1990s. He received a life sentence, shutting the door on any chance of returning to fame. Even in prison, he continued violent behavior and got convicted again for attacking another inmate, showing that his pattern of cruelty didn't stop. His journey from comedy films and fighting rings to permanent lockup is a chilling warning about choosing a life of harm and violence. Roman Polanski is a world-famous Polish-French film director known for his artistic movies. But in 1977, he faced serious legal trouble involving a 13-year-old girl named Samantha Geimer. He was originally charged with 6 serious offenses, but ended up pleading guilty to 1 count of unlawful relations with a minor. He served 42 days in prison as part of an evaluation. However, when the judge indicated he might go back on the plea deal and give Polanski more prison time, the director fled to France in 1978 before his official sentencing. He's been living there ever since because France doesn't extradite its citizens to the United States. He continues making movies while remaining a fugitive from American justice. Skylar Deleon, who once had small acting ambitions and even landed a tiny role in a Power Rangers project, ended up creating the most horrifying real-life story. He and his accomplices targeted Tom and Jackie Hawks, a retired couple, by pretending to be interested in buying their yacht. They tricked the couple into a boat trip, tied them up, forced them to sign over ownership of the yacht, and then pushed them into the ocean while they were still alive and bound. The cruelty of this act is almost unbelievable. Skylar got a life sentence and will spend the rest of his days in a cell instead of chasing Hollywood dreams, all because of greed and extreme brutality. Danny Masterson, once a fan favorite from that 70s show with laid-back charm and strong comedy timing, saw his image fall apart when several women came forward with serious allegations against him. Their stories revealed a pattern of deeply disturbing behavior that had been hidden behind his celebrity status. The case went to court, and he eventually got convicted and sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. His fall from sitcom star to long-term inmate shows that being famous doesn't protect anyone from accountability when survivors come forward and a court listens to them. Grantham, a young actor familiar from Riverdale and other projects, had what looked like a promising future on screen. That all ended when he admitted that he ended his own mother's life. A confession that shocked people far beyond Canada where he lived. He got charged with second-degree homicide, and after a very emotional trial, he received a life sentence with no chance of parole for 14 years. Instead of growing his career, he's now in prison. And his story has become a tragic example of how something unthinkable can happen, even in seemingly normal families. Jonathan Copenhaver, better known as War Machine in the mixed martial arts world, built a fan base with his intense fighting style and toughness in the cage. But outside the ring, his violent behavior turned into something far more horrifying. He brutally attacked his ex-girlfriend and another man in a case that made headlines everywhere. In court, he got handed a life sentence, with the possibility of parole only after 36 years. His path from professional fighter to lifer in prison shows just how far uncontrolled rage and abuse can go and how hard the consequences hit. Suge Knight, the powerful co-founder of DR Records, helped shape West Coast rap in the 1990s and was once one of the most feared figures in the music industry. But his life kept spinning deeper into chaos, and in 2015, he was involved in a hit-and-run incident that ended a man's life and badly hurt another. He eventually accepted a plea deal and got sentenced to 28 years in prison. The man who once controlled an entire label now lives behind bars, and his story shows how violence and power games can destroy not just careers, but entire legacies. Elizabeth Holmes was once praised as a genius and a visionary, with her company Theranos promising to change medical testing with just a tiny drop of blood. She raised hundreds of millions of dollars from wealthy investors and powerful people who believed the hype. But it all collapsed when reporters and investigators exposed that the technology didn't work as claimed. Holmes got found guilty of fraud and conspiracy for lying to investors, and instead of running a billion-dollar company, she's now serving time in federal prison. Her story is a big warning about hype, fake promises, and what happens when ambition crosses the line into deception. Hernandez was a superstar on the football field, playing for the New England Patriots with a huge contract and a future that looked legendary. But off the field, his life was tangled with violence and dangerous people. In June 2013, he got arrested in connection with the ending of Odin Lloyd's life, a semi-professional player who knew him personally. In April 2015, he got convicted and given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Even though he was later found not guilty in a different case, he was found deceased in his prison cell not long after. His story is one of the most tragic falls in sports history, mixing talent, trouble, and deep sadness. Corey Miller. Corey Miller was a rapper whose songs often described tough street life. In 2002, a 16-year-old fan lost his life in a nightclub in Louisiana, and Miller got convicted of causing that loss in a case that stirred up a lot of debate. He's always maintained that he's innocent, and some family members and supporters have campaigned for a new trial. But the courts have repeatedly upheld his life sentence. His name now sits at the intersection of hip-hop, the justice system, and long-running questions about fairness in criminal cases. Mel Hall, once a talented Major League Baseball player, known for strong hitting and a big personality, saw his life veer into something much darker after he retired. He eventually got convicted on many charges related to inappropriate and exploitative behavior with underage girls, many of whom he met while coaching youth sports. The judge gave him a 45-year sentence, which for a man his age is basically the rest of his life. His story shows how someone can use sports and authority as a cover to harm others, and how the justice system can step in years later to hold them accountable. Harvey Weinstein was once one of the most powerful producers in Hollywood, able to turn small films into award-winning hits and shape entire careers. That power collapsed when many women came forward with detailed accounts of misconduct and abuse over decades. In 2020, he got convicted in New York and given a 23-year sentence. And in 2022, he got convicted again in Los Angeles and received another 16-year sentence. Instead of walking red carpets, he now moves through prison corridors. And his case became a turning point in how the public talks about abuse, consent, and power in the entertainment industry. Mark Gator Rogowski, once a legendary skateboarder and hero in the extreme sports world, shocked fans when his name became tied to a violent case in the early 1990s. He confessed to attacking and ending Jessica Bergston's life, someone he knew personally. He got convicted of first-degree homicide and sentenced to 31 years to life in prison. His fall from trend-setting skater to long-term prisoner is one of the most dramatic in sports, and it continues to haunt people who grew up watching his videos. Ian Watkins, former lead singer of the rock band Lost Prophets, went from sold-out shows and hit songs to being at the center of one of the most horrifying criminal cases in music history. He got convicted on multiple counts involving minors, including acts so extreme and disturbing that many fans refused to ever listen to his music again. He got sentenced to 35 years in prison, making it very unlikely he'll ever walk free as a regular citizen. His case stands as one of the clearest examples of how a performer can use fame and trust for the worst possible reasons. Shannon Richardson, a small-time actress who had minor appearances on shows like The Walking Dead, became widely known not for her acting but for a terrifying real-life incident. She mailed letters containing ricin, a deadly poison, to President Barack Obama and other political leaders. The letters created a huge national security scare and prompted a major federal investigation. She got sentenced to 18 years in federal prison, and her story shows how a person with almost no real power can still cause massive danger and end up paying a very heavy price. O.J. Simpson started out as a legendary football player, then became a familiar face in movies and commercials. In 1994, his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman lost their lives in a brutal way, and Simpson got charged in a criminal case that the whole world watched. He was found not guilty in the criminal trial, but a civil court later found him responsible for their wrongful passing and ordered him to pay damages. Years later, in 2008, He got convicted of armed robbery and kidnapping in Las Vegas and served 9 years in prison before being released in 2017. His life story is a complicated mix of glory, scandal, and legal drama that never really faded from public memory. R. Kelly, once celebrated as the king of rhythm and blues with huge hits and massive record sales, is now known mostly for years of abuse and control behind the scenes. After many accusations over decades, he finally got convicted of running a criminal enterprise that exploited, manipulated, and harmed young people, many of them fans. He got sentenced to 30 years in federal prison, and he's also faced other serious cases in different states. The man who once dominated the charts is now a symbol of how fame can hide long-running harm until survivors are finally believed. Dave Meggett, a former National Football League running back, was once a Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion with a flashy, exciting style on the field. Off the field, he faced a series of accusations involving serious harm and violence against women. Eventually, he got convicted and sentenced to 30 years in prison. His story shows how someone can go from sports hero to convicted offender, and how a pattern of behavior can finally catch up with a person, no matter how many trophies they won. Joe Exotic, the loud, eccentric zoo owner made famous by the documentary series Tiger King, first drew attention with his big cats, flashy clothes, and wild online videos. But what seemed like quirky entertainment hit a much darker reality. He got convicted of trying to hire someone to harm animal rights activist Carol Baskin, along with multiple counts related to animal cruelty at his zoo. He got sentenced to 21 years in prison, turning his larger-than-life personality into a cautionary tale about obsession, cruelty, and taking feuds way too far. Tammy Sitch, known as Sunny, was one of the very first widely popular women in professional wrestling and helped define the era of the original wrestling divas. Over the years, she struggled with substance use and repeated arrests. Things turned tragic when she drove under the influence and caused a crash that led to the passing of a 75-year-old man. She got sentenced to 17 years in prison, followed by 8 years of probation. Her journey from bright arenas to a prison cell is a painful reminder of how long-term addiction and reckless decisions on the road can end in irreversible harm. Darren Sharper, a former star safety in the National Football League, once enjoyed respect for his talents on the field. Behind the scenes, however, he was carrying out some of the most disturbing offenses ever linked to a major athlete, using substances to incapacitate women and then harming them. Multiple states brought cases against him, and in 2016, he got sentenced to 20 years in prison as part of a complicated multi-state plea agreement. His story is a brutal example of how status and fame can be twisted to target victims instead of protect them. Josh Duggar became known on the reality show 19 Kids and Counting, where his family presented a carefully controlled image of faith and traditional values. That image collapsed when he got charged and later convicted of possessing illegal digital material involving minors. The case drew huge media coverage and shattered the public's trust in the wholesome brand his family had built. He got sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, and his name is now associated more with hypocrisy and harm than with family-friendly television. Jared Fogle became famous as the spokesperson for a sandwich chain after losing a massive amount of weight and turning his story into a symbol of healthy living. For years, he was presented as a wholesome role model. That image completely collapsed when he got investigated and then arrested for illegal acts involving minors and harmful digital materials. He got sentenced to 15 years and 8 months in prison. The man who once sold an image of discipline and self-control is now a textbook case of shattered trust and hidden double lives. Paul Gadd, known to the world as Gary Glitter, was once a huge glam rock star with hit songs, wild stage outfits, and fans around the globe. Behind that glittery image, he committed repeated offenses involving minors in different countries over many years. In 2015, in the United Kingdom, he got sentenced to 16 years in prison for a series of historic offenses. His name is now so toxic that many places avoid playing his music at all, and he's remembered more for his offenses than for his earlier career. Mike Tyson, the boxing legend people called the baddest man on the planet, grew up facing really tough circumstances and had plenty of run-ins with the law. Even though he made it all the way to the top of boxing, his personal life was chaotic. Back in 1992, he got convicted in a case involving an 18-year-old woman named Desiree Washington, who was competing in the Miss Black America pageant. The judge gave him a 10-year sentence with the last 4 years suspended. and he ended up doing almost 3 years before they let him out in 1995. Tyson's story really shows how even super talented athletes can mess up badly in their personal lives and face serious legal consequences. Which of these stories resonated with you the most? If you found value in this tribute, please share your thoughts. It helps keep the memory of these stars alive. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe and like it. It really helps with channel promotion.